There is a silence as the guests and the family, the hungry, pause to watch this individual. A couple of them having bits of meat in their mouths, a couple of sinews. Someone tries to eat whilst watching. All perfectly silent. Even the ones that are injured stop and don't scream or howl in pain. Just taking it in, waiting for something, a command, a sermon. The lady sort of bows her head and goes, "Please, how silly of us. We forgot to say grace."
I scramble under the table desperately, my old toenails scratching on the ground loudly, and I can't get traction. And the throng of people slam into the table, and I find desperate shelter underneath the huge oak and whine pathetically as I can just see the fervor happening beyond, looking desperately for Francis's legs and being unable to identify where he is.
The figure moves forward. It's a limping kind of walk, but it doesn't imply any sort of injury or old age. It's the sort of odd gait that a predator has when it's not at full speed. And it says, "No need to apologize, child. I am found wherever there is want." And it takes a seat at the head of the table.
The sort of sound of this person's feet, the sort of like noise, as described, not any walking impediment, but like almost like a clack, clack, clack as nails hit the wooden boards. Bailey, again looking from their position underneath the table, just sees feet splayed out, horrible black claws curled, digging grooves into the wood as this individual slowly walks to the head and sits.
And as he does, he looks around again at the arrayed guests who so recently, in a chaotic tableau of fighting over the very scarce remnants of the food that was once here, are now serene, rapt, looking at him. And he says, "Ah, well, I see that you have partaken in a communion already. But perhaps you will indulge me and let me lead the benediction, for I see we have a new member among us on this eve." And his gaze, his almost alien gaze, black eyes, fix on Francis.
Member? What do you mean?
Well, you are here, of course, to join our lovely congregation, I should assume, for no one who does not hunger desperately for something they cannot have finds their way here.
No, I did not come here by intention.
Are you denying that there is an absence in your life, that you crave something that should fit there, but is missing?
Are you not a hungry person?
This is true of everybody. I haven't met someone who doesn't want something.
Want. How pedestrian. I am talking craving. A burning need, a desire that must be fulfilled, because if it's not, you are tortured by the pangs of not having it. This goes beyond mere want.
I don't understand. I'm not hungry.
Cacophony of crow calls from the windowsill all filter in simultaneously as you start saying that.
So many types of hungers in this world. Is there no cup from which you drink deep and still find yourself parched?
Maybe it's best that I excuse myself.
The cause of the crows strike up again in a discordant chorus as you say that, and perhaps even start to stand. And then they coalesce into something a little more melodious than what you're used to hearing. And you realize they're saying the words that your daughter said to you last before she left.
Fuck.
I recognize the pant leg, the disgusting gray slacks of which I have slept upon, and I rush towards them and I sink my teeth into that calf.
Ah! Yeah.
Francis!
Bailey.
And I look up at you. I peer my head out from beneath the throng of the thrashing limbs, and I lock eyes with you. We gotta go.
Where?
And as you say that, that acrid smell permeates the entirety of this room, I think.
Francis.
The food that had been so lovingly prepared starts to wither away in real time. Mold spots and maggots and all manner of aging all at once.
The gourd itself, once the big centerpiece ready to come out, or starts to fall in on itself. Slowly but surely, the seeds sputtering as if trying to use its decaying body to push up some new life, eventually falling down. The juices of it seeping out into every pot, every pan, every tray.
Bailey,
Francis, to an empty home, devoid of everything we have here.
I have Bailey.
Ah, Bailey. And the crows begin to chorus, Bailey, 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 Bailey,
Bailey.
in your daughter's voice.
Why are they talking like that?
How else should they speak?
Not like that.
Branky, please. And I take your hand in my mouth, but without biting it. There's no pain. I just hold it there and I pull it away from the table. Frankie.
On camera, we see like Francis kind of coming up from his chair, and this is when the bite marks from all the other guests are suddenly visible, tears in the clothing, moth-eaten as the moths have taken little bites as well. Bailey, if Hannah's here...
No. And I let go. In order to speak, my mouth opens and your hand falls away, and I see something take hold of you.
It's the withered guest that you saw before, and as you turn to them in response, they cough and crow feathers spill from their mouth.
Well, that rocks.
Their eyes are rolling back in their head as these feathers, like, they start to choke as they're trying to puff it out. Some of them start to puff like a horrible black vial coming down their throats. And now we see that the guests themselves are also rapidly aging or have been aged. A jaw falls off one. We see fingers cracking and like turning to dust, like parchment, thin paper, the sinew between the limbs trying to keep things together. A lady in a dress, her dress straps fall through to the collarbone with no shoulders, no nothing to keep it upright.
The crow man looks at all this with love and pride, like a gardener looking at their garden.
And looking at Francis again, he says, "It may look strange to you, but if you embrace your hunger, limitations disappear. That is what I found. That is what led me here."
Don't want to embrace this hunger. I don't want any of this. I don't...
Hannah did.
Well, I didn't want her.
She was so desperate for your affection, for your attention. And in the end, she had to go for a pet, a dog, that just was all she could get.
Anything more tragic than a hungry child?
I didn't leave, though.
You didn't really stay either. There's a difference between being with someone and being there.
I didn't leave like so many other people I knew. I stayed. I provided.
And the guests burst into mocking applause.
And the crow god's laughter sounds just like its mortal counterparts for a moment, mocking. And then he says, provide.
Actually, I'm gonna be one of these. The crow god's laugh sounds like the echoing of the mountains and the flowing of water wearing away rocks as they turn to you and say,
provided. Providing is the least that we can do. Did you nurture? Did you fulfill? Did you satiate? These are the things that we look for in our hunger.
No. When her mother left, I stayed. I was the one who was there. She is the one who abandoned me.
I take hold of your wrist in my mouth, and in your right, I can see there's a bird's nest, and in it, a crow's egg. And as you throw your hand back, I see that egg thrown, and it land on the ground. And from that forgotten egg, we hear the sound of the mountains, whistling with no crows, no cause. And from that forgotten egg rises a god. Frankie, this not you. Frankie. And I lick your hand.
it tastes absolutely disgusting.
And I keep licking.
I give Bailey a little pet, my hand shaking with adrenaline, with fear, with just emotion. Bailey, we gotta go.
She's not here, Frankie.
So, go like you always do. And you realize that you couldn't catch it before because that voice is so scratchy and so inhuman. But it's not a masculine voice. It is actually distinctly feminine.
It's not her, Frankie. It's okay. I nuzzle your hand until it lands on my head.
I know that we have to go, but I
nod. And I sit, suddenly and effectively, without any strain, at your side.
Looking around the table, we can see now that the other dinner guests have just become corpses, skeletons, wisps of hair. The thing we notice as the camera pans over each individual guest is their teeth are so sharp, a horrible canine-like almost. Even our initial hostess, standing just stock still, almost as if frozen in time, her body sort of becoming one with the floor and the open doorway, her hand on the door handle as if to go and check on supper. Dresses and clothes mold away to nothing. Just you and this individual at the head of the table.
There's almost a whisper as she fades away of, Carl, it's time for dessert.
No.
No dessert.
She says, I love you.
And the crow god doesn't react, as though he doesn't even hear it. And there's a moment, Francis, while you sit on the opposite end of the table from this thing, where you're struck with double vision, as though this isn't one long table. This is half a table, and there's a mirror in the middle.
I look and I see we are seated at the far end. And all along the sides are corpses thrown back in their chairs, skeletons faded away to nothing. And I see you lock eyes with yourself in the mirror.
The bodies are thrown back, but they are not dust or anything like that. They clearly go down and there's a mulch. And you see the sprouting of leaves. and vegetation and seeds as the crops start to grow again.
And the peeping of newborn birds hatching from eggs. And you hear a voice as you look into the mirror, and it says, "Ask me who I am, Francis."
But I'm scared.
I know. Ask anyway.
Frankie.
Really?
Fear is just another manifestation of hunger. The hunger to know.
It all goes back to hunger.
Really,
I know.
Francis, you see your reflection in the mirror start locking eyes with you and putting their hands on the surface of the mirror from their side and nodding.
Break the shell, Francis. Satiate the hunger. Ask me who I am.
Who are you?
I'm with you, Frankie.
And the mirror cracks, and the hand of the figure that had been pressing against it gently pushes through like eggshell. And it says, "I'm you."
Fade out.
Yeah, that's gotta be it.
Woo, that was good, you guys.
Yeah, really good.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! I say we title this "Cause of the Crows." I like the wordplay.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Love it.
I had that song playing repeat the whole time.
Oh, me too.
Holy
So
shit.
intense.
It was so intense.
I had it on repeat the entire time.
I wasn't. Now I feel like I missed out.
Yeah, I stopped
no,
with
I mean,
That's so cool.
just listen back to the episode.
Yeah, when you go on the podcast, just play it on.
Be like,
Oh
oh,
my
man,
God,
that Liz is on fire.
God, yeah.
Viewers at home.
Oh,
To really
God.
enhance your experience, yeah. I can't do that for you.
Okay. All right. Okay, Ryan. So we're gonna try and pull an epilogue out of this. I mean, it's sudden and emotional and violent, so we need a song, and also like something to give peace. Honestly, this is like it's become more you than me, and I'm supportive in this transient thing. I'm trying to think. Okay, so I have an idea, unless you have anything you're percolating on.
I'm percolating on a song.
Great. I have a vague setting. We're gonna go way back in time.
I was gonna say flashback or something.
I
Yeah.
was thinking that's
Love a non-linear scene.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
We need to do something at some point in your life, and we can mess. And the nature of the Never Was means that like I'm gonna be there as a puppy. And you are going to be perhaps like a young father or a father in there, and we're going to be there with your daughter. And so it's the memory filtered through the Never Was. So the essence of it is something you've already experienced, but with all this other stuff happening. And so we're going to try and pull some kind of epilogue out of that, right? Whether or not you knew me or not, or whether I was there, or whether I represent this like family pet. And we're going to, in the opening narration, decide exactly like how old are you and how young is your daughter, but like this has to be the domestic experience of like what was, and we're going to answer some questions, and that's going to be it. That's going to be our tale. What do you think?
I like that.
Great.
A lot.
Great. What's your song? We'll pull it up, and then we'll just fucking go.
Just tell me if it. I think it's got the right feeling. But
Yeah, literally anything I'm going to be fucking good with.
Mm-hmm.
Harper's Ferry.
Okay. Honestly, full transparency, I was very excited to play this game because it's like half people who've played, half people that haven't. So 2 days ago, I spent some time looking for Swamp Witch music to add to the playlist, and this song was one of them.
Heck yeah.
So really, really stoked to have it on here. Okay, Ryan, the only thing we got to do is gotta do it in like first person.
Yeah.
But we're going to establish where are we and what's happening. We're going to all say
Harper's Ferry is 414.
414. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, go, and we're going to hit play, and then either you or I are going to speak as a relatively young father. I don't want to put you in a corner about like how young you are and like how young your daughter is, but like it's in this weird loosey-goosey kind of time and memory in which we're like all together, right? So it's like both the world and some reality and kind of this other thing. Do you have other points of order before we just like jump in full hog?
Just checking on the tokens. Who gets what? That's all.
I got tokens.
Yeah.
It's 222.
222. Okay.
Oh man, what a good choice. Did you pull this out randomly, or were you just like, how did you get to 414 on my list? This is 400 songs into my playlist.
I have it on shuffle, and every time a song, because like when we play, I'll have it on, and when a song like, oh that I can imagine listening to that one, I write down the name.
Oh, that's very good.
That's so smart.
That's so fucking smart.
Yeah, I added this song 2 days ago, literally 2 days ago.
It was the first song that started playing when I hit play before we actually started playing.
Yeah, it's a heck of a thing.
Let's do it. We got this.
Count us in.
All right, so we're gonna go on 414. I'm gonna go with a 1, 2, 3, go. And everybody hits play, and then Ron and I are gonna do it to it. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
So she named you Bailey. Huh. No. That was her mother's name. I wasn't the one who wanted a dog. It's hard enough when Bailey, not you, the woman. I don't know what I'm doing here. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. I am so fucking tired.
I remember seeing her fly up through the sky as high as could be, then come back down to your arms, and you caught her. There wasn't a care in the world. Sure, it was a swing. She was already safe, but she seemed to fly like a rocket, and she screamed in mock terror. And every time she came down, you'd catch her and you'd throw her again. And I didn't know what was happening. I was just barking and running around. I was just happy to be there. The gravel was hard to move on, and I'd like stumble a little. But I just heard her scream and scream, "Daddy, Daddy, watch me, watch me."
Listen, Bailey, just, can you at least try to keep her company?
Yeah. I love you. I love her.
Just met.
I love you. Oh my God, what's that? Is that a shoelace? I love shoelaces. Give it to me. 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 Give it to me.
Bailey.
I love this game.
Hey, Hannah. Watch yourself.
I heard her yell, "Where's mommy? Where's mommy?" And I ran and I ran and I ran. There wasn't anybody, so I ran back. And I saw her hug you and pull herself out of the swing. "I love you, Daddy," she said.
Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know how. How do you even be a father? What does that mean?
I saw her fall out of the swing and laugh and run off towards the jungle gym as you sat on the railroad tire inside and looked to the parking lot where there was one single car. And I sat beside you and barked.
Bailey, how do I make this feeling go away?
There it is. There's the question.
There is a table that is got a long table runner over the edges. The wood grain looks fairly new, but fairly put together. On it, a fruit bowl that once contained fruit, but due to individuals not necessarily partaking in said fruit, it has been replaced. Real fruit has been replaced with fake fruit. A big sort of like weaved sort of horn, fake grapes, apples, oranges. A cornucopia in the center of the table.
I look and I see the table set in the playground, confused between the swings and the jungle gym. And I rush forward, excited, energetic, and grab the end of the tablecloth and pull it. And slowly the fake fruit falls onto the ground, and I bark excitedly.
And the fake fruit transforms mid-fall into birds' eggs that splatter when they hit the ground with soft cracks.
Bailey!
Frankie, look! Frankie, look!
Bailey, just...
Frankie, look!
Francis looks into the mirror. So is this just to remind me that I'm a piece of shit? Is this just here to remind me how I abandoned the one person I was supposed to take care of? How I couldn't just man up and be the person that I was supposed to be? No, I had to run away like some pathetic fool and...
Frankie, look! And I look and I see one of the eggs has fallen, hasn't cracked. And it starts to shake. And it opens. And there's a small black baby crow right in the center. Frankie!
Francis leans down with surprising ease and lifts it up, cradles it in his hand gently.
It's so tiny, it's so fragile. Its eyes haven't opened yet, and it peeps pathetically, moving its small head around looking for food.
Its mouth opens wide, trying to guess where it will come from. Its eyes still covered over. It can't see currently.
Francis brings his hand up and leans just the tip of his finger to the crow's mouth to let it nibble on him.
It draws blood, just a drop.
I think I'm gonna change that. I think it draws just a drop of blood, but it keeps drawing on something deeper at the base of your spine.
I feel it tingle like the nerve pain that I've grown so accustomed to.
The sound of a doorbell goes. The door opens and many voices shouting and talking over each other excitedly. Uncles, aunts, cousins upon cousins upon cousins entering the space, each with their own bits of Tupperware they're ready to bring to the picnic, filing past you, greeting you, occasionally sort of nodding to you as a celebration is about to occur.
I look at Francis and I see that you're barely 18, 19, nervous, awkward, gangly, and you see her poking around in the back, looking awkward.
I'm going to change that.
Yeah, do it.
Instead of focusing your attention on the guests, because you are 19 and unsure, your attention is drawn to the window. You're outside, there's a window. We've established that the rules don't matter here of houses. And outside, there are crows in the yard doing the things that crows do. Playing with something shiny in the leaves, cawing. For a second, you think, again, that you're hearing those last words that Hannah said to you before she left. It's not forever.
You've gotten younger, but the crow that you were feeding has gotten older, and it sits on your shoulder in silence.
The sound of a smoke alarm goes off as someone pulls something from the oven. Oh, gosh, it's burnt again. A pair of hands and gloves pulls out and goes, oh, it's ruined. And put on to a space, and you see a burnt cake.
Nah. It's a gingerbread man.
Of course, we knew this.
Some of the many relatives that have come in cluster around you, cluster around the cook, tutting, saying, oh, it's not ruined. You can scrape the burnt bits off. Here, I'll show you. And suddenly you're the person pulling the gingerbread man out of the oven.
The floor is scattered with black feathers. No one seems to notice, but they're there.
And I scrape away with feather-plucked skin. So I just have to give in.
It's not giving in. And the person talking to you looks like that crow god again. It's accepting it for what it is.
The crow on your shoulder says in a chat voice, this feeling never goes away.
There is a sort of warm-up chorus of various individuals clearing their throats. The lights seem to dim, and the start of a song of Happy Birthday starts to play.
Bailey,
Hey, Frankie.
would it be so bad, wrong, if I just stay here and pretend a little bit?
We gotta go, Frankie. We gotta go. I look and I see that I'm a puppy, but I speak with an older, darker voice. You did okay, Francis.
Make a wish, Hannah.
And her voice, her little girl voice that you remember, says, I wish... And I think we fade to black.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anyone ran out of tokens, but I was also feeling that we've narrowly
I
reached
was
the
just like, this
conclusion.
is the spot.
No,
That's it.
that was
That's it. That's the
Yeah,
spot.
that's good.
perfect.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
100%.
Ooh.
Man, that was
Crap.
What a roller coaster from pastoral horror to...
So Fiona, so like whether or not this is part of the podcast or otherwise, we gotta do a fucking debrief.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
a debrief. I love a debrief. It
I'm-
is fundamental to my experience at the table, and whether or not, however this is involved, we need to fucking...
I am happy for it. I guess I just want to check with everyone just now. Are people okay for it to be recorded? That's it. That's the only thing I just want to check because that's the only thing. If someone's like,
whether or
no,
not you have as part
Let
of
the
the
people know.
experience or
Exactly,
your
'cause I'm-
Patreon
yeah,
or whatever you want to do.
I'm very happy to include it in the main thing because I think people need it.
Great.
I just wanted to just double check that people are okay for this bit of recording because again, it's a bit of safety as well.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
no worries.
So I do this in a number of ways. A number of years ago, I started doing Roses and Thorns. So you would go around and just like call out moments that really like stayed out to you. And then in campaigns, the Thorn wasn't necessarily like something you didn't like, but like it was like a delta, so which was different. But here, I just think it's like us deprocessing. Like we're looking to kind of pull through. So I would love if anybody had a moment that like really stood out to them that they need to like get out. It's Graham and Ryan and Liz and Audrey and Saul and Fiona. Like we've pulled back out.
Yeah.
This is very important to me. Like I love immersion to the point of which to absurdity. However, the debrief is vital to me. So like Where y'all at?
I was posting in the chat during this that I like have been crying since like the second chapter. Partly that's just because like when I have like the anticipation, like the fear anticipation, that's like how my body responds. But partly it was because I could thematically kind of see the direction we were going as we honed in on targeting like Francis's fears and insecurities. And so for me, as a parent, the moment where you ask the question, Ryan, like, how do I make this feeling go away? Like, you always feel like you're fucking up a little bit. You just do. And it doesn't go away. And that is so hard to live with. And like, to not dwell on so much that you like miss out on your kid growing up and having their life experiences, you know? Mm-hmm. So that was definitely contributing to like my emotional state. It was wonderful and I love it.
Again, I appreciate we didn't necessarily record our foundries. Again, just to explain, we did not only did we do safety tools and stuff off the project, we also did some foundries as well, something that brings us joy. And in the list, what I noticed is that, because we came back to it a lot bit about what we enjoy about role-playing games is organically finding the story. I had no fucking idea we would end up at that ending at all.
Yeah.
And that is just pure sort of, again, that mind meld, that improving, yes-anding each other. And it was just so good. And yeah, that meaningful narrative as well comes back into it there. And cut away to like to a flashback. I'm so cool. I was like, we need a flashback. We need to be like, why are we here? And so I'm so glad that the finals chapter was that, and it didn't matter. Like, again, I love nightmare logic. That's one of my big things about horror, and so that's what it just felt so right to do that. So yeah, no, thank you everyone for just putting that together. So those are the big ones that stand out to me currently, but I'm sure there'll be more. But yeah, just again, that sort of like, player ownership. Everyone came together, that organic finding the story, and then the cutting away to like a vignette, a flashback or something that was in our foundries, which was brilliant.
It felt so important. In between the chapters, my ideal is that the players check in and say, like, what does the story need? Like, what are we looking for? We've already built to something. And the idea of this other world not applying to the normal logic or ideas or narrative is so important to finding those themes and then players being freed to find it. So the fact that we can, have this pastoral other world that you've walked to, it's like Oz is like Narnia. Okay, fine. We can accept that we're like not in our world, but the really difficult stuff, and for me, the really rewarding stuff is when this is a memory, but it's not a memory. And where does that begin and end? Doesn't fucking matter. And we're going to figure it out as we go. That's the shit that's happening. And everybody was on board. That's a giant rose. Absolutely. I echo everything you just said. Fabulous work.
I really sorry.
Go for it. No, go for it.
I really felt like the cohesion that we came to, like the way the final chapter was such a reflection and inversion of the first two, felt really solid to me, and I think that we all added to that. And so when Liz and I were talking at the beginning about like what we wanted for the terror, we had crows aesthetically, and kind of the idea that like they're like opportunists, and the other element was desiccation, so like lack and scarcity. And so to have that brought back around and like flipped on its head, where it's like all these people are here but you're not alone, versus how it was for Francis in the first half, that just like really crystallized in a great way, I think. So
no, I think
I was going to mention that it was so gorgeous. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it was so gorgeous. We had this like back and forth team terror thing. It's like, all right, if you're feeling this vibe, it looks like our individual ideas are going to meld really well. And then our opening agrarian monologue is about plenty and food and like a whole party. And I was like, this is gonna be great.
Literally typed in the chat, they're playing right into our hands. Like,
I'm gonna be so scared. I'm gonna uncorn your copia, like cornucopia. Fuck you, uncorn, use your copia.
No, I think there was this moment a bit into chapter 2 where we all kind of like fell into step and we're like, oh, I think we see where this is going. Like the whole hunger thing, and just like this, like the demands on the body, on like kind of satisfaction, like it just, there's I know like like just on camera though, Elizabeth, I'm not
he's both.
You just had this one where you're like tapping your nose, and I was like, oh yeah, we're in the groove. We're in the groove right now. We're doing this. It was so good.
Shout out to these song choices too.
Yeah, song choices. So I would 100% say my rose was the song choices throughout, and especially the flow at the start of chapter 2, as we sort of like at the end of chapter 1, we're all starting to click of like understand where we're going, what was likely this is going to go and lead to, and then like that transition of the music, the monologue, the question, and the question I like was like the only departure at first for me in that chapter, but then like it very clearly like started working itself out as we all like realized immediately like, oh yeah, no, this is just exactly what we thought all along. We just had different words for it almost.
Very well said. Absolutely.
I think I've got an individual sort of rose. Like I think everyone did great, but Ryan, you sat with the silences and the pauses so much. And I think we all felt it as well. Again, as a way I know I appreciate as players, like you're thinking about things like how to react, but it was perfect. And that timing of like talking to whatever the individual was and that back and forth, it was just like, it was gripping. Is that sort of thing where I'm sure you probably get this all the time, but that idea of like, how would you make a fucking TV show of this fucking thing? And the answer is, I don't think you can, but in a good way, because it wouldn't be anywhere near as good as like just letting people just sit and think and do the sort of the weird like nightmare logic sort of thing. So yeah, I just wanted to give a massive kudos to Ryan to just be like sitting with, because again the story again did pivot towards your character, and I know sometimes that can be incredibly overwhelming at times, but you handled it so well, and it was really bravo is what I would say to that.
Agreed. It definitely came to a point where like Francis was the focus, and that felt so natural, and everybody was supporting it so well. And at a table where it can feel like, oh, there's 5 GMs and there's my character, you did a great job.
Yeah, and related to that, I also just wanted to give a kudos to Graham, especially his young puppy version, like really helped, I think, those moments where like it did feel like there was a lot being heaped on to Ryan as Francis. And sort of added a levity and a very playfulness there.
I liked the way that you embodied Bailey in such a way that he was a bit of a stand-in for Hannah. And that felt really good.
I feel very seen. Thank you.
Also, your dog barking and yelling was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
No, but you hit the tonal clash. Right, because you get like the rambunctious puppy at the end who's just like quiet, reassuring, and the way you manage to blend that with like the shoelace, like, oh my god,
so funny. Oh, I laughed so hard.
But it really helped ground me in the scene, because then I was like, oh, I have something to bounce off of, and like it felt very good. Honestly, it just felt good.
Talking about funny, Fiona, I am so enamored with you just repeating how large the gourd was.
Oh, yeah. Huge rose. I love a running gag. Holy fuck! In the middle of a monologue, and you're like, they're like footnotes, and you're like, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, the gourd is very big.
It's big.
So good. So good.
I'm not stressed enough.
I'll take it. I'll take that rose.
So fucking good.
Oh, man. Also, Liz, a specific rose for when you said in the first chapter, the sun is flirting with dusk. I was just like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
Really good. Everybody did such a good job narrating.
Great voices in this group.
Yeah, and another rose to Sol. Like, you introduced the idea of like this woman character, and being able to drew. Like, I was like, that was the starting point to me going like, well, who else is in this world with her? And just you did such a strong characterization for me that I was like, I know exactly, like, this is what I picture of it, and just being able to shift that back and forth, and then allowing us for everyone to sort of mix in and then be different voices, because you sort of opened that for us. So I just wanted to get massive kudos to that, because that was really fucking cool.
It was so strong. I find that in the games that I facilitated, and then either my favorite part is to teach and then like not play because I feel like oftentimes I can be like too large because I like have there. But Saul, like you placing all of these things and saying this is the game and then we have to react meant that everybody had so much to play off of, and it was such a strong choice and a good choice, and like meant that everybody, like your partner in the Arcadia and everybody else, meant that like we were really folded in. And that was the time before we were even creating themes, which at that midpoint and even after we're like, how do we fold this out? The beginning is easily the hardest part, and you did a fabulous job.
Yeah, it was great. Also, Graham, just from like a game design perspective, I really like the way that the tokens feel in this game, the change tokens, because I think that there is a hesitancy in GMless games to contradict each other or to say, no, but what if this? And so to have that built into the game felt really good because every time we were all just excited about how it was changing.
Yes,
you know?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's essential to me because I love role-playing games in a broad sense, and in storytelling games is vague, right? Like where is this line? Like who even cares? But so much of it is like we're going to focus in, and the people that have discovered and loved storytelling games are people that are all this like yes Andy improv, like we're going to listen to each other. And so I wanted friction. Like the game is trying to look at tonal clash. So it's this horror game, but like I'm a puppy and that's funny, but also I'm serious, but also I'm like scared. Like how do I do all of these things at the same time? And so I'm so happy that it landed for you because I am honestly trying to play with the emotions of the player. I don't want it to feel good when you play a token, but at the same time like everybody's being excited, which means that like you get it. So that makes me so happy.
Yeah. I also like that when we got to like the chapter 3 part, we all were like, well, we didn't use that many tokens, but I think by then we were all kind of so in sync that we were like, this is how it needs to go. You know? Like it felt flexible enough.
Yeah.
I think on a broader note, I'm so interested. I've now played this game twice, and both times we started off in horror and we ended so profoundly in like grief and the human experience. And I think that's like such a thing to say. Like I've said once that horror is just tragedy through a different viewpoint.
100%.
And I think that we really like hit that hard in this game.
Yeah, it was just an absolute pleasure to play with all of you guys. Again, the first time for me. I know some of you played together before, but yeah, no, thank you. It was really, it felt like a really, as you said, by the end, we're all on the same page of what we want to do and stuff. And it felt very easy to role play with all of you. So thank you so much for that. Half
new players and half people who've played like at least once. And, I love that. Or maybe less, honestly. Like, no, it's half and half. Yeah, for sure.
I think another one of my roles now that I think about it is, so like at the beginning you told like us to write like a description and a pastoral, and I just want to read my description of like the setting.
Do it.
Oh yeah, I can read right now as well. Yeah,
an unnaturally bright lighthouse on a cliff in a gray thunderstorm is what the setting was for me, and just like how immediately that was not what was happening, and how like I loved how much I was able to build into what Fiona had written started as we like originally built each other up, and just like it's like, oh yeah, I had something completely different because I was focusing on fish and tentacles and cultists and like
the green lights and
I was like, we're not touching any of that. So great, I love this.
A cult of some
there
sort.
were a couple really nice moments when you were talking about the light coming through the windows that I flipped out, and I was dropping note cards left and right because the opening Arcadian descriptions were like so personal and so slow and so visceral. It wasn't this like establishing shot and then running down and then looking and then we see our characters. Like it was the opposite, and I was racked with attention. Like both of you had me immediately interested in what you were saying.
Everybody, like, we were engaging all the senses.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it helped that the themes worked into it, but like there were some times we were describing sense or like feelings, tactile feelings, and all these things. So it's like, for me, that just makes it so much more vivid, instead of just focusing on visual elements.
That was one of our foundries too, was like the nitty gritty, and everybody really brought that into their descriptions, which I liked. I was gonna just like say on the pacing, I think it worked really well to basically cut the time in half for each chapter.
Love that,
because it made the stakes feel like exponentially closer because of shortening the time as we went.
Yeah, proper big swings as well. People just going out there and doing stuff, and that felt very supportive. Like when I, in that chapter 2, and I said, I could see, this back and forth, and I just interrupted and said, well, Hannah did, and everyone then just like, yeah, and it just felt so supportive in that moment, because into my head it's like, well, this is it. And easily, again, if someone had interrupted, I would have been absolutely fine, but everyone was just like, yeah, and just carried on as if nothing had happened, as if it was scripted, That's what it felt like.
It felt like you were reading my mind when you did that, because I was like, I'm building towards that. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's where we were going.
This is where the story was going all along. We just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like those O-card moments with people like listening, because safety tools are so important, but also I've played so many games in which like you're total strangers. Like you haven't, how are you supposed to create a horror game or like a comedy romance game or even just like a friendly action game, and when nothing is occurring, we're like, okay, we're going to list like the worst shit you can possibly fucking imagine. And so like it was like midnight at some con, and I was like, well, this is the O card, and you're going to use it. It's the opposite of the X card. And when people started saying to use it more, it meant that like in the middle of this thing, you're in a haze of description and theme and idea and imagery. Like, how are you supposed to know the people on the same page? And then if somebody says one thing and literally everybody on the table hits the button or holds an O, that's such a huge moment. That's such a huge, exciting moment, which everyone is celebrating. And for me, that's the alchemy. That's the foundry. That's the idea of why what we're doing is important and exciting even at the base level. So absolutely.
This was a particularly intense session. It also hit a bit different for me. Graham, you know all about this, but my partner and I have been trying to have a kid for like coming on 3 years now.
Oh gosh.
And so it was very like I don't know that I'd call it a rose or a thorn, but just scream out that I didn't want a child was very unusual. Like it just hit different.
Wow.
Like not in a bad way.
It's emotionally intense.
I mean, at the beginning of the game, you talked about how you like hated dogs, and I like didn't think about that when I was like, I'm going to play your dog.
Oh really? I thought that was
I genuinely thought that was what you were doing. Like,
I thought that was why you did that.
I to be perfectly honest, I love playing crows, and whenever everyone's like, "There's crows," I'm like, "Well, shit,
I can't do that."
It's very funny I didn't play a crow because I absolutely love to embody crows. I was like, I'm going to be a dog, and I was like, wait a minute, you specifically said you hate dogs. How is this going to play out?
No. I said I am scared of them.
You're scared of dogs, and I got to embody a dog.
I'm just saying, scared is so different from
Yes,
it's true.
Yeah.
They're so true.
They're correlated, but
yeah. I also want a massive shout out again. The listeners at home can't see it, but Saul has been wearing this massive fucking flower fascinator on his head. He came into the call adorned with stuff, and then slowly but surely over the thing, the various things decayed, of course. But right now there's still a beautiful like bouquet upon his headphones, and I just very much appreciated seeing that. Everyone's like like hands clasped, like a little bit of tears and stuff, and then there's just Saul with this massive fuck off flower, and I'm so like keeping it real.
Fiona, what were your images? What did you write down?
Of course, yeah. So I wrote down, I think maybe I did go quite hard on it. So that the first one I did like red and orange leaves covering a bench near a small lake/pond.
Great.
And then I put a screaming face in a cornfield /harvest. And then I wrote
love that. Again, everybody just pointed to you, all of you in the the audio format. People are like, hell yeah. Like you got big kudos for that.
Yeah, because I looked it up as I was thinking about it. There's that artist, the Italian artist that creates paintings of men and women through fruit, Giuseppe Archambaudol or something like that. And that's what I was imagining was this idea of like food and people, and then that's why I was trying to end at the end when I was trying to interrupt you, and then realized as you said I can build upon you, is that everything just goes back. It's that harvest. So it actually in my head the god, like, I'm glad, it was one of those things in my head. I was like, is it the god of rebirth and death and stuff like that? And then obviously we shifted, and I was like, no, it's much more personal than that. So I like that, like, this idea of like time, but it's almost like personal, like your time and you being in charge of that. So
when I asked the question, I 100% was like, this god is Carl, like that we've been referencing, who's not here, right?
Yeah.
So I was really pleased when that was not who the god was.
I was thinking that too, and then like we said the mirror, and I was like first we were having out Hannah, I was like, God's Hannah, and then we saw the mirror, I was like, of course not.
yeah.
I also flipped out Fiona when you mentioned cornfields, because one of the ideas that I had that I was sharing with Audrey was like crows attacking a scarecrow. So we're already synergizing.
Fabulous.
Fiona, to like jump on what you were saying before, is that 100% my intention as I was introducing Carl was almost immediately that Carl was going to be some weird harvest plant monstrosity come back to life.
Incredible.
It was like my intent.
I love that.
He
and
is
like
the gourd.
I picked up like I picked up on that. I think
He was the
from what
gourd.
you were saying exactly.
The giant gourd was Carl all along.
And then like when we like had this pivot into like, oh, the figure is now the god and also maybe Carl, but also maybe not, I was like, yeah, this is great too. I'm loving this just as much.
Yeah.
My like weird vegetation thing was vines covered in fish scales that reek and drip a viscous liquid that glows.
Oh, we had we had liquid as well, didn't we? Yeah. Ooh.
All in on like that initially, and so like when like we had this very different scene, I was like, I want just a big honking gorge, like an enormous. I want 17.
Saul, I don't mean to stop you, but I cannot overstate how big that gourd is.
I want a 17-year-old pumpkin. I want to set a stage with a 17-year-old.
Okay. We need to say, before we say anything else, it's a very big gourd.
I cannot describe to you. I cannot emphasize enough.
Lovecraftianly, indescribably huge.
Hope the gourd made it out okay.
No.
Carl? You mean Carl? Carl was the gourd.
I almost tried introducing Carl as the figure in chapter 3, like giving you resurgence, but like I couldn't find a way to actually make it work, and I was like, the way it's playing out, I like better than forcing this.
Yes, I agree.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Like, I never could have come up with this story on my own. Like, even with themes that I enjoy and characters, like, this only could have happened with us.
Yes.
And everything that everyone was bringing, which is like what makes it so interesting. It's like if you've ever gone to see a movie that you know nothing about, like you haven't seen a trailer for it, your friend's just like, let's go see this movie. Like, all right, and you sit down and you're like, holy shit! I wasn't prepared to feel things today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. If we go around, Sol, is there anything you would like to recommend or plug, please?
Thank you. I would like to just briefly plug Under and Autumn Strangely. I think it's a really great game. It has horror tropes. It has meaningful resolution and processing of complex emotions, I would say.
Where can you get that game? At IPR? Can you get that at Indie Press Revolution?
Yeah, I think you can get that at...
Okay, great.
I think, yes. Liz.
I'm Liz. I have no public-facing social media, so give those who do some extra love. And if you enjoyed this game, you might want to check out 10 Candles if you like collaborative horror with your friends, and then you just sit in a lot of really sad feelings and make pretend people's lives miserable. That might be a game you like too.
Amazing, thank you. Audrey.
You can find me online at ladytabletop.itch.io or on Tumblr under Lady Tabletop. I also host a podcast called Alone at the Table, where I do actual plays of solo RPGs, which you can find if you Google the title of the podcast. If I had to recommend something in this similar vein, I would say Sleepaway by Jay Dragon. It's another collaborative, token-based, less autumn horror, more summer horror, very emotional.
Amazing, thank you. Ryan.
So yeah, if you want to find, so I'm also a game designer, and you can find my stuff at arcon.itch.io. I'm also on Blue Sky at TrueRyanCon, and totally opposite of this, I have been working on a game called Bug Dish, which is about bug chefs traveling around the world to compete in cooking competitions. I have a playtest document that is going to be released real soon. Been working on it. Graham has been super helpful. But yeah, look out for that. Bug Dish.
Thank you so much. And last but by no means least, Graham.
I love Bug Dish. I love what Audrey has done. I am so happy that I get to have such fine people playing this game. Liz, Saul, Fiona, you have completely rocked this. I said beforehand that this game would not be what it was if not people coming to the table and having ownership over this, and I feel like we all get to walk away and say, this game is valuable because of what we did. So please figure that out, play your games, play this and other things. I love 10 Candles. I love Sleepaway. I love the games in which people are listening to each other and making those happen. Fucking A. Go play some good games.
Where can we get Under an Autumn Strangely?
I have an itch, which is grahamgens.itch.io, and also at Indie Press Revolution. You can look for my name. We're Under the Autumn Strangely. So if there's a con, and if they're around, and if you're looking for a pastoral horror game, that's where you can get it. Under the Autumn Strangely. There you go.
Amazing.
Physical copies at IPR as well as the PDF.
Mm-hmm. Getting in there. All right, well done, everyone. Thank you so much. The What Am I Rolling podcast was created, recorded, and edited by me, Fiona Howat. This episode's players were Ryan, Sol, Audrey, Liz, and me, Fiona. Our special guest facilitator was Graham Gent. This episode's RPG was Under the Autumn Strangely, a storytelling game of pastoral horror priming with anachronistic Americana set in a land that never was. You can find out more information about Under the Autumn Strangely and grab your own copy on Graham's itch.io page or Drive-Thru RPG. The theme music was 8-Bit March by Twin Musicon of twinmusicon.org, licensed under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you want to find out more about the podcast, check out the website. That's www.wairpodcast.com. Fancy getting in touch? Email the podcast at whatamirollingpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, follow the podcast on social media. You can find us at WAIR_podcast for the latest news on upcoming episodes. All the links are in the episode show notes, including a link to our Discord. And remember, adventurers need not apply.